Hello class, today we'll be talking about 1.6 other types of equations and applications. The first one we're going to look at is rational equations. Then we're going to do work rate with problems. Then we're going to have equations with radicals. Then we'll have equations with rational exponents. Then we're going to have equations with quadratic and form. So let's look at this. So when we deal with rational equations, it's an equation that has a rational expression for one or more terms. So to solve this thing, we have to multiply by the LCD, which is LCD stands for the least common denominator. So the first thing we have to do when we want to tackle these things, we have to look at what is the LCD of the denominators. We have to look at denominators first. All right. Now, after you solve these things and we find and we multiply and we solve these things and we get x equal to something, then we have to go back and look and see if that answer makes our denominator 0. And now if it makes our denominator 0, then it's a no solution type deal. So there will not be an answer if that particular x makes it a no solution, makes the denominator equal to 0. So let's look at it. First example says we have 3x minus 1 over 3 minus 2x all over x minus 1 is equal to x. Now, when we look at the LCD of this one, we look at the denominators. So we have a 3 and we have x minus 1. So the only LCD possible would be 3 times x minus 1. All right. Now we're going to take that LCD and we're going to multiply it throughout the whole equation. All right. So we're going to have 3 times x minus 1 times my 3x minus 1 all over 3 minus my 3x, my 3 times x minus 1 times the 2x, all right, all over x minus 1, which is equal to my 3x times x minus 1. Now, I just went on ahead and put 3x instead of putting 3 times x minus 1 times x, just 3x minus 1, all right? Now, we're going to cancel out our 3, so this is just going to be x minus 1 times 3x minus 1, all right, minus, all right, then what happens? Our x minus 1 cancels, so it'll be 3 times 2x, which is equal to 3x squared minus 3x. All right, so we got rid of all the fractions, all the denominators. So now we just solve this as we would a regular equation. So now we're going to do the forward method. So it's going to be 3x squared. Then we're going to have minus x. Then we have minus 3x. Then we're going to have plus 1. Then we have minus 6x is equal to 3x squared minus 3x. Now, I'm going to change colors because look, I have a 3x on this side and a 3x on this side, 3x squared, and I have a negative 3x on this side and negative 3x on this side. All of these cancel. All right? So I am left with negative x plus 1 minus 6x is equal to 0. Therefore, I have negative 7x plus 1 is equal to 0. So I got negative 7x is equal to negative 1. So x is just equal to 1 over 7. All right, so x is equal to 1 over 7. Now, the only thing that x cannot be here is what? X cannot be equal to 1. So this checks out because it does not make the denominator equal to 0. So let's look at this one. So we have x minus 2, x minus 2. So we have all like denominators, all right? Now, we do have a whole number that's over 1. Now, if you come across this, that means that this is going to be your LCD. So your LCD in this case would be x minus 2, all right? And now you're going to take x minus 2 and multiply it times all of this. Now, we're going to do the same thing we did before, but instead of writing the step where I write out the top and the bottom, we're just going to go ahead and multiply it out. So we will end up with x is equal to 2 plus 2 times what? X minus 2. Now we have x is equal to 2 plus 2x minus what? 4. All right? Therefore, I'm going to have x minus 2x is equal to negative 2. So I'm going to get what? I'm going to get negative x is equal to negative 2. So x is equal to 2. Now, we have to actually do what first before we say that this is the answer? Plug it back in. Now, when I plug this back in, I get 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. That means that what? It cannot be this, so this does not check out. So the solution would be what? X is equal to the empty set. So this is the empty set. Or you could say no solution. All right? So keep that in mind when you're doing these problems. So let's look at this one. All right, we have 3x plus 2 all over x minus 2 plus 1 over x is equal to negative 2 over x squared minus 2x. So the thing is, we have to know that this is x times x minus 2. All right, which is the same thing as this and this. So our LCD will be x times x minus 2. All right, and we're going to multiply it times the LCD, which is the x times x minus 2. Now, this is going to leave us with what? X times 3x plus 2. All right, then we're going to have what? Plus, and then this was going to have what? We're going to have x minus 2 times my 1. Then we're going to have equal to negative 2. So just keep that in mind when we do this. All right. So now when we distribute, we will get what? 3x squared plus 2x plus x minus 2 is equal to negative 2. Now, I'm going to change colors because we're going to get rid of some stuff. This time, this and this, it does what? It goes away. Therefore, this is 3x squared plus 3x is equal to 0. Therefore, if I factor out 3x, it'd be 3x times x plus 1 is equal to 0. So I got 3x is equal to 0 and x plus 1 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 0 and then x is equal to negative 1. Now, the thing is, we know that x cannot be equal to 0 because of this right here. So x is not equal to 0, but x is equal to negative 1. So this one checks out and the other one does not. So let's look at this problem. Now, we need to understand that this right here is the difference of two squares. So therefore, it would be x minus 1 and x plus 1. All right, that's what that factors out to. Therefore, that's what our LCD is. X minus 1 times x plus 1. And you're going to multiply the whole thing by that LCD, which is going to be x minus 1 times x plus 1. All right, now this is just going to equal what? Negative 4x times my x plus 1 plus 4 times my x minus 1 because the denominator is canceling with the other ones. Then it's going to be equal to negative 8. Therefore, I'm going to get negative 4x squared minus 4x plus 4x minus 4, which is equal to negative 8. So make sure when you're doing this, you make sure you multiply correctly. All right. Now, my two 4x's do what? They cancel. So therefore, I'm going to have negative 4x squared minus 4 is equal to negative 8. Now, I'm going to say I got negative 4x squared is equal to negative 8 plus 4. So negative 4x is equal to what? Negative 4. So now I'm going to have x squared is equal to what? Positive what? 1, because we got negative 4 divided by negative 4, and that gives me positive 1. So x is equal to plus or minus 1. So we got x is equal to 1 and x is equal to negative 1. Now, when you got something like this, you got to understand, it can't be either one of these, because if you plug this in or plug this in, one of these are going to be what? 0. Therefore, our answer would be the empty set, or no solution. We have no real solution to go into this thing. So just make sure when you're going through these problems, you make sure you understand what you are actually doing. Now, let's look at these work problems. So with these work problems, it says problem solving if a job can be done in T units of time, then the rate of work is R and is what? 1 over T of a job per unit. So R is equal to 1 over T. Now it says the amount of work completed, A is found by multiplying the rate of work, R, all right, and the amount of work, T. All right, so now we have what? This formula would be D is equal to RT. It's similar to D is equal to RT. So therefore, it would be A is equal to RT. So the amount of work completed would be the rate of work times the amount of time of work. So let's keep that in mind. So let's look at this problem right here. Now we're going to do this problem basically the same way that we did the other problem. So it says what? A printer can do a job twice as fast as another. All right? So 2 times as fast. All right, so now we have what? That tells us how much time it takes for one to do it faster than the other. It says working together, both printers can do the job in 2 hours. How long would it take each printer to do the job alone? All right, so if we look at what we got, and we're going to do, we got the faster printer. So we got the faster printer. And then we have the what? The slower printer. And that's what we're starting off with, all right? So when we think about the rate, all right, the rate of the faster printer is what? 1 over X. The rate of the lower printer is 1 over 2X, because it's 2 times slower than the what? Other one, all right? Now, when we think about how much time, is 2 and 2, because it's talking about 2 hours. Therefore, if we look at what we have, it'll be what? If we look at part of the job complete, it'll be 2 over X and what? 2 over 2X, which is just equal to 1 over X. Okay? Now, what should we do now? We have to do what? Add the 2, so it'll be what? It'll be 2 over X plus 1 over X is equal to what? 1, because we're talking about one job, all right? So, as we're going down in this method, we got to go ahead and solve this, all right? We got to go ahead and solve it. Now, let's look at what we have. We don't have to do all the extra stuff because we already have like denominators. Now, this would just be what? 3 over X is equal to 1. So we multiply both sides by X. We know that X is equal to what? X is just equal to 3. All right? So what do we know about that? So if X is equal to 3, we can figure out how long it takes for both jobs to do. All right? So let's look at what we got. All right, let's look at all the things that we have. We know that X is equal to 3. All right. We know how much time one takes. So it says what? It says how long would it take for each printer to do the job alone? Okay, let's look at that. So if we know that with both of them, all right, so we know that x is equal to 3, right? So it's 2 times what? 3 is equal to 6 hours, right? So we know that it should take what? 6 hours for the slower printer to do what? Work. All right, because let's say we got 2 times 6, 2 times 3, which gives me 6. So that's 6 hours that the slower printer should take to finish the job. And then for the other printer, it should take what? 3 hours. Right? Because if x is the what? Starting point. So so basically, if you look at what you have, you know that all you have to do is just look at the rate of what you're actually doing. All right? So we just want to keep that in mind. So don't, go through the problem and be like, okay, I don't know where I need to go. No, you know where to go. You just got to make sure you read the question. All right? So just make sure you read the question. So it takes 6 hours for the slower printer to do the full job, and it'll take 3 hours for the what? Faster printer to do it. This is the slower one. And then the faster one takes 3 hours. All right? So, but with both of them together, it takes 2 hours to do the job. All right? That makes sense. Because the faster printer is still going to be printing fast. The slower printer just still be printing slower, but it'll even out and it'll wind up getting done in 2 hours. So let's look. Now, power properties. All right. When we talk about power properties, it says if P and Q are algebraic expressions, then every solution of the equation P equal to Q is also a solution of the equation P to the n is equal to Q to the n for any positive integer n. All right. So what it's saying basically, if P is equal to Q, that means we have the same what? Base. So if I raise it to the same exponent, it should be what? The same. All right. That's all it's saying. All right. So when we're going through these different things, it has different steps that they say. So it says what? Step 1 is to isolate the radical on one side. Step 2 is to raise each side to what? A power that is the same index as the radical. So if I have 1/2 for a radical or the square root of 2, I need to raise it to the second power. Or if I have 1/3, if I basically have the cube root of a cube root of something, I need to raise it to the cube. So keep that in mind. So let's look at this problem. First, you need to do what? We got x minus the square root of 15 minus 2x. So let's look. So we're going to have x is equal to the square root of 15 minus 2x. So the first thing we want to do, and I'm going to use red, is square both sides. Because I'm dealing with a square root, so I'm going to square both sides. So this will be x squared is equal to 15 minus 2x. And then 15 minus 2x because we squared the square root, which eliminates the square root. That's the whole point of doing this. So now this is just going to be x squared plus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. Now we can see if we can factor this. So what two numbers multiply to give me x? All right, so x times x squared. So what two numbers multiply to give me negative 15, but subtract to give me, or add to give me what? Plus 2. So I can say I got what? Plus 5 and minus 3. So x is equal to, and I can just say x plus 5 is equal to 0, and x minus 3 is equal to 0. So therefore, x is equal to negative 5, and x is equal to 3. Now, what you have to do, you have to go back and check and make sure you don't get a negative number under the radical. Now, for these, if I were to put in let's say if I got the square root of 15 minus 2 times negative 5, all right, that's going to give me the square root of 15 plus 10. So we don't even have to finish that. We still going to get less than what? We still going to get a positive number, so we don't need to worry about that. Remember, it cannot be a negative under the radical. All right? So both of these check out. So just keep that in mind. Both of these check out. So you can use both of them as an answer choice. Because when you put in negative 5, you get negative 5 times, yeah. So you still get an answer choice. So we would get 25, then we'd get x is equal to 5, whatever. So now let's look at something. Let's see if both sides are actually true. Let's look at this. So if I got x is equal to the square root of what? 15 minus 2 times 3. So I'm going to have x is equal to the square root of 15 minus what? 6. So I got x is equal to the square root of 9, which that equals what? 3, which we said x is equal to 3. Now, let's say if I got x is equal to negative 5. So I got x is equal to the square root of 15 minus 2 times a negative 5. All right, so we got x is equal to the square root of 15 plus what? 10. So we got x is equal to the square root of 25. So we got x is equal to what? 5. Oh, now we have to understand something. 5 and negative 5 are not equal. So if I don't end up with the right result, you're not going to be able to get that. So x is equal to 3. All right, so the only result you have is x is equal to 3. All right, so keep that in mind. So you have to go back and check every time. Let's look at this one. So we have the square root of 2x plus 3 minus the square root of x plus 1 is equal to 1. So the first thing we want to do is move the radical. So we're going to have the square root of 2x plus 3 is equal to 1 plus the square root of x plus 1. Now, I'm going to do what? Square both sides. And it's going to get rid of this. This is going to be 2x plus 3 is equal to what? X plus 1 plus what we'll get. So we'll get x plus 1. Then we'll get what? X plus 1. Then we'll get plus 1. And then we'll get what? X plus 1. All right? Because it's going to square out. So now it's just going to be 2x plus 3. And then we're going to have what? Is equal to 2 square root of x plus 1 plus x plus 2. And we're going to move those to this side. So it's going to be x plus 3, 2x plus 3 minus x minus 2 is equal to 2 times the square root of x plus 1. And then we're going to go ahead and get rid of some things. So it's going to be x plus 1 is equal to 2 square root of x plus 1. And then we're going to square both sides. All right, when we square both sides, this is just going to be what? X squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to, and then this is going to be 4 times x plus 1. All right? So when we do this, then we're going to have what? If I move up, all right, this is going to be x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to 4 times x plus 4. So now we're going to subtract those onto this side. So we're going to have x squared minus 2x. Then we're going to have what? Minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we're going to factor these. All right, so we're going to have x and x. Then we're going to have minus 3 and minus what? And plus 1. All right, so we're going to have x minus 3 is equal to 0. And then we'll have x plus 1 is equal to 0. So x will be equal to 3. And x is equal to what? Negative 1. So make sure when you go through these, you make sure you go back and check. So go back and check to see which one actually works. All right? Now, once you go back and check, you'll notice that both of them work. So my answer would be 3 and negative 1. All right? It'd be 3 and negative 1. So keep that in mind. So let's look at this one. Now, this one is the cube root. So in the cube root, we have to do what? Cube it. So what we're going to do is go ahead and move. We're going to have the cube root of 4x squared minus 4x plus 1 is equal to the cube root of x. All right? So now I'm going to cube both sides. And I'm going to change colors. So we got 4x squared minus 4x plus 1 is equal to x. So therefore, we just go have 4x squared. Then we're going to have minus 5x plus 1 is equal to 0. So now we're going to have to actually do what? We actually have to do what? We have to actually solve this, right? So when we factor this, I'm going to have 4x and I'm going to have x. Then I'm going to have what? Minus 1. Then I'm going to have plus 1. Well, it's going to be minus 1, sorry. It should be minus 1. Because negative times negative is a positive. And that's equal to 0. So I'm going to get 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. And x minus 1 is equal to 0. Therefore, I'm going to have 4x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 1/4. And I'm going to have x is equal to 1. Now, we have to do what? We have to look at it to make sure that they are valid, right? So when we plug it back in, we got to see if they valid. Now, you take the time, just take your calculator to see if they both are valid, and they both check out. All right? So all you got to do is plug it back in. So just make sure when you do this, you make sure you do what? You go back in and you plug it back in to see if it gives you a true statement. All right. Now we got something a little bit different here. It gives us 2/3. All right. So it's x to the what? X minus 4 to the 2/3 is equal to what? 16. Now, let's look at this. So in this problem, all right, since they give us x to the 2/3, so now we're going to do what? We're going to raise each side to the what? 3/2. All right? 3/2. That's how we'll get it. We multiply, we raise it to the reciprocal. So therefore, this is going to be x minus 1, x minus 4 is equal to what? 16 raised to the 3/2. So the best way that I know to go ahead and do this is go ahead and do what? Take the square root of what? 16. So I'm going to have x minus 4 is equal to 4 raised to the 3rd. And so I'm going to have x minus 4 is equal to 64. Now, when I take the square root, I have to understand that it's plus or minus. So it's a plus or minus here. All right? There's plus or minus. So this is to be a plus or minus 64. So therefore, I'm going to have x minus 4 is equal to 64. And then I'm going to have x plus, x minus 4 is equal to negative 64. So I'm going to have x is equal to 68. And then I'm going to have x is equal to negative what? Negative 60. All right? So now you want to make sure that they both work. So you go back and then you do what? You plug them in. All right? But they both work. They both check out. So now let's look at x raised to the 3/5. So if it's x raised to the 3/5, we just raise it to the 5/3. And the same thing here. Now, the thing is, you can just put this in the calculator and find your answer. So you go get x is equal to what? You'll get 243. All right? So you can take the cube root, which will give you what? 3. So it'll be 3 to the 5th. All right? So keep that in mind. That's what you will wind up getting. 3 to the 5th. So now we have what? Equations, quadratic in form. All right? It's an equation said to be quadratic in form if it can be written as a times u squared plus bu plus c is equal to 0. Where a is equal to 0 and u is what? Some algebraic expression. So let's look here. All right, this is what? X plus 1 raised to the 2/3 minus x plus 1 raised to the 1/3 minus 2 is equal to 0. So we can say that we can write this as what? We can say that u, in this case, we can say that u is equal to x plus 1 raised to the 1/3. Therefore, it'll be what? U squared minus u minus 2 is equal to 0. So when we do this, we can do this easily. It'll be u minus 2, u plus 1, right? So we got u is equal to positive 2. We got u is equal to negative 1. But now we basically have to sub it back in. So we got x plus 1 raised to the what? 1/3 is equal to 2. And then we have x plus 1 raised to the 1/3 is equal to what? Negative 1. Now to get rid of a 1/3, we have to do what? Cube it. So therefore, we're going to get what? X plus 1 is equal to what? 8. So x is equal to 7. And here we got to do the same thing, cube both sides. So we're going to get x plus 1 is equal to negative 1. All right. So we'll get x is equal to negative 2. Now, make sure when you're doing these problems, you don't get confused. All right. Because the thing is, you just want to be able to go through it. All right. So we got x is equal to negative 2. And let me fix this so it looks like actual 2. All right, so it's negative 2 and negative 7. And positive 7, sorry. And if you go back and check, they both work. Let's look at another problem. So this says 6 times x raised to the negative 2 plus x raised to the negative 1 is equal to 2. So if we look at our u just be x to the negative 1. All right, so we got 6u squared plus u is equal to 2. Now all we got to do is subtract. So we got what? 6u squared plus u minus 2 is equal to 0. So when we do this, we want to go ahead and factor this. All right, so now the first thing you have to do is know how to factor this. So we got 3u, 2u, and then do we use pluses or minuses? We got to use 1 plus, so we got 2 plus 2 and minus 1. All right, so now we got 3u plus 2 is equal to 0, and 2u minus 1 is equal to 0. So we got 3u is equal to negative 2, and u is equal to negative 2/3. Then we have what? 2u is equal to 1, so u is equal to 1/2. So when we go over here, we basically have x to the negative 1 is equal to negative 2/2. No, wait, negative 2/3, sorry. All right. Now, and then we have what? X to the negative 1 is equal to 1/2. Now, all you got to do is do what? Flip both sides. So when you flip both sides, you just go get what? X is equal to negative 3/2, and x is equal to what? 2, because 2 over 1 is 2. All right? So it's just a reciprocal. So don't let it confuse you, because that's all you're doing is the reciprocal. So therefore, you get, your answers would be what? 3, negative 3/2, and what? 2. All right, so make sure. And one more example, all right? So in this case, we will have, so it's 12x to the 4th minus 11x squared plus 2 is equal to 0. So we know that our u is going to be x squared. So we're going to have 12u squared minus 11u plus 2 is equal to 0. All right, so we're going to say we got what? So when we do this problem, we got to do what? We got to factor it. So let's look at this. So we're going to have what? 3u minus 2 times what? 4u minus 1, right? Because it's going to have to be, both of them have to be negative if it's going to get the positive. Because we have a negative insides, and it's equal to 0. So we get 3u is equal, minus 2 is equal to 0, and we get 4u minus 1 is equal to 0. So here we get what? U is equal to what? 2 over 3. And we get here, we get u is equal to 1 over 4. Now, when we rewrite this, this is going to be what? X squared is equal to 2/3, and x squared is equal to what? 1/4. Now, you have to take the square root of both sides, right? So if I take square root of both sides, I get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 2/3, and I'm going to get x is equal to plus or minus the square root. Well, it won't be the square root. It'll be just what? Plus or minus what? 1/2. All right? Because I do plus or minus the 4th, I'm going to get plus or minus 1/2. All right? So when I rewrite this, so basically I'm going to have, for this x is equal to what? Plus or minus the square root of 2 over the square root of 3. Then I'm going to rationalize and do square root of 3 over the square root of 3. Which this is just going to give me the square root of 6 over what? 3. So it's just going to be plus or minus the square root of 6 over 3. All right? So just keep that in mind. So it's just going to be plus or minus the square root of 6 over 3. And we're going to have plus or minus over 1/2. Now, so if you make sure if you have any questions about this, you make sure you send me a message through Microsoft Teams or you send me an email.